This lecture is titled Black Girls Matter, and it's an introduction to the activist tool, the hashtag. We're going to learn about online activism and about how Twitter has participated in creating or facilitating the creation of a new movement, Black Lives Matter, out of a very old problem, police violence against African Americans. So I first want to start with an introduction for anyone who's unfamiliar with Twitter. Twitter was founded by Jack Dorsey, Evan Williams, Biz Stone, and Noah Glass in 2006 in San Francisco. A tweet is a 140 character maximum post or headline. There's two ways you can use Twitter. One is to, there's multiple ways you can use Twitter. But some of the ways are either to post a standalone tweet, which is your thoughts and opinions on something that is current, or a link to a longer article, videos, or other information. And so a lot of news outlets will be on Twitter linking, just providing a headline and then linking the rest of the article. That's one of the ways that they use it. Twitter is free for everyone. Anyone can sign up and post. And I'm going to take a little look at the interface for those of you who might not be as familiar with Twitter. Here's my Twitter feed. As you can see, it wants to sell me a vacuum. Mother Jones retweeted this photo. But I want to show us something else, which is that you can actually search by hashtag for particular content in Twitter. So let's say I want to find out hashtag Black Lives Matter, and let's see what we get. And so you can see some of the critiques of former President Clinton's recent speech. That seems to be the big news now. You can see everyone else's comments on it under the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And so what the hashtag really does is categorizes people who are in this, who are all concerned with the same issue. And the fact that the traditional media has picked up on the hashtag Black Lives Matter and they're now getting publicity also, I think, helps raise awareness. So if you ever want to know what people are saying, this is how you go about it. Now, back to the PowerPoint for a second. And so the hashtag is, as we've seen, it's a user-created method of categorizing tweets. So you can actually come up with your own hashtag at any point. You can hashtag anything, although if people don't know about it and know to search it, then it's not going to be as effective. It's usually better when the hashtag catches on, and then you can search through everyone who's commented on that same topic. Then you're actually having a conversation with each other. And hashtags, as we saw, allow Twitter users to both search for information and contribute content. Now, some of the popular hashtags that we're seeing now are obviously the hashtag Black Lives Matter, or for short, the hashtag BLM. Now, the title of this article, of this lecture, is Black Girls Matter, which is another hashtag that everyone has used to draw attention to the fact that there are that problems of police violence also affect Black girls in ways that people aren't talking about. We do tend to focus the conversation on Black men and Black boys, which, and I don't want to deny the violence that is visited upon them by police, but we often forget that Black girls are going through many of the same things. Now, another one, because there are populations out there are people who are not African American who also experience police violence simply because of who they are and what identity category they belong to. So another one would be, for example, Queer Lives Matter. I've also seen Trans Lives Matter. Those are groups of people who the LGBTQ community, and the trans community also experience high levels of police harassment and violence. And so that's one of the other ways that it's used. Now, I want to talk for a minute about the hashtag All Lives Matter because it's come up a lot in national politics. And maybe some of you remember Martin O'Malley, who was the third runner-up for the Democratic nominee, saying Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and him being booed off stage for that. I want everyone to realize that Martin O'Malley was mayor of Baltimore for a long time, so we're going there. The reason that I think All Lives Matter is offensive to so many people is that white people do not have the same experience with the police. If I get stopped by the police, they call me ma'am, they ask me how I'm doing, they make sure I'm not having problems. You know, I can recall an instance when I was a teenager and I was walking with a friend of mine who was a black man, and the police stopped and asked me if I was okay. It wasn't, you know, the young man was dressed according to the school dress code, had his backpack, everything, you know, there was nothing suspicious. It was the middle of the day, we were attending school. But I think that for those police, they were there to protect me and to police him in this way. And so that's something that I think about when I think about the relationship that people of different races and ethnicities have to the police, and different social positions in general, because as I said, police also harass LGBTQ individuals and trans individuals. So I think when people counter with this idea that all lives matter, the point is that the police don't act like white lives don't matter. The police act like Black lives don't matter. And then when, you know, someone like Eric Garner or Trayvon Martin is killed, there's no response from mainstream society. The police are often acquitted. And so that's why All Lives Matter has come to be upsetting for people and offensive to people who are trying to recognize the specific issues that some communities face with the police more than others. Okay? I wanted to explain that. And the other point to make about the Black Lives Matter movement is that sometimes when a movement arises, we get this feeling like the problem is new or different. And as I stated at the beginning of the lecture, this is not a new problem, not a new issue. Police harassment of African Americans. And in fact, I did a little research from 2011 to 2014 in Baltimore City. 100 people won civil rights settlements cases. And the settlements totaled 5.7 million. So, you know, to say that police violence is suddenly coming up or that it's escalating is inaccurate. I think that these issues have been going on for a long time. We saw Rodney King being beaten on videotape by the LAPD in 1991, and the police officers were acquitted. And Baltimore City has known that people are getting beaten up for years, and has been losing their court cases and settling out of court, and did not address the issue. One instance in particular that I wanted to bring up is the story of 87-year-old Venus Green. She's a foster mother and retired teacher, not exactly a dangerous person, right? Especially at 87 years old. And her grandson was shot and ran to her house for help. The police followed him and demanded that she allow them entry into her basement. She had her dogs in the basement, and she said, "No, you can't come into my basement without a warrant." Now, when she refused, she was smacked down to the point that the police actually broke her shoulder to try to get into the basement, with no warrant, which is illegal. Now, eventually she was released and the police didn't end up entering her house illegally. One of the African American officers who later showed up a few moments later to the scene, sort of rectified the situation. But if we think about this, so often these instances of police violence are couched under, well, this person was possibly a dangerous criminal and the police officer felt threatened. It's hard to imagine thinking that an 87-year-old woman was posing a real physical threat of danger to these police. They just wanted to go around the law and check her out, and felt that they really had the right to do that. And I think that when we interpret that instance in context with everything else, we can say that the police feel that they have some kind of extra legal rights over African American citizens, that they feel entitled to exercise. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of other things that I can say about breaking an 87-year-old woman's shoulder. But the point is that before Freddie Gray, he was not the first person to suffer violence at the hands of the Baltimore City Police. It's an ongoing issue that everyone knew about and that nobody was addressing. So that's something to think about when we think about the Black Lives Matter movement. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog barking in the background. Now, I want to leave you with this video, that also preps for this week's reading on Black Girls Matter. And it is, in some ways, the least disturbing video that I could find, because at least it's not a murder, but it's still very disturbing, and it speaks to the reading that you're about to do on how the school to prison pipeline works for girls, and the way that young African American girls are facing similar types of harassment to the police harassment that we hear about of African American boys, and in a lot of ways are even more disadvantaged in school because there's a permissive attitude that that boys will be boys to a certain extent. So this is a South Carolina case where a student had her cell phone out in class and refused to put it away. And you can see a school police officer beating her fairly severely. Again, I think if you look at the size differential, it seems unlikely to me that this police officer was really threatened by a 16-year-old girl, but rather that he felt entitled to use excessive force. And one of the wonderful things, maybe wonderful is not a great word, but one of the, I think, politically empowering things that's happening as we catch things on videotape is that we are now able to spread them virally very quickly and build a movement around them. I will still point out that police violence that's caught on camera does not always result in action, unfortunately. In the case of Rodney King, or in the more recent case of Eric Garner, where his murder was caught on film, the police were acquitted. And so I like to think that the internet era is pushing us forward. I think it certainly is raising awareness, but I don't think it's as simple as once officers are caught on tape, they will be prosecuted. I think that we have a bigger task ahead of us, which is building awareness, building momentum, and building people's knowledge that these are not individual one-off cases. It's not about that individual officer and the situation. It's when the preponderance of evidence is that this is going on systematically, that we need to take a really hard look at what our practices are as a society, and it starts from how we're treating children in school. So take a look at the video, take some notes, and come back and meet me on the discussion boards we'll discuss.